scenario where Armenia forms an empire. Now, Armenia is a very small Asian country over here in the Caucasus region, right next to the Middle East and also right next to Russia. This is a very historic country that dates back to thousands and thousands of years ago. So what if they tried to form an empire in the modern day? If you guys enjoyed today's video, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. All the support is, as always, greatly appreciated. The 200,000 subscriber merchandise is out and it will be out for the rest of this year. So if you're going to grab something, I highly recommend getting the 200k celebration stuff because that's going away after December 31st. So you still have around 2 months to get it if you want to. But for now, let's go ahead and jump straight into this video. So Armenia, they're not the strongest country in the world, obviously, but they're not necessarily super weak. We also know that they are surrounded by a lot of countries, some of which really don't like them, like Turkey and Azerbaijan. But that isn't really going to matter in this scenario. So what is the first thing that Armenia does to form an empire? Well, first they're going to have to go into some kind of monarchy or some kind of authoritarian state, so they do that. And now they have a foreign policy that consists of aggressive expansion and the idea of creating a greater Armenia. With that being said, though, they really can't invade anyone around them. Turkey is stronger than them, Iran is obviously way stronger than them, Azerbaijan is stronger than them, and even Georgia is stronger than them. So how do they get land? It's actually fairly simple. Russia is going to invade Georgia, and Armenia will join the war on the side of Russia to hopefully split this country into two. So the Russians will begin to advance from their already occupied territories, going into Georgia and immediately threatening their capital city. Armenian troops will then also cross over and meet up with Russian forces up north, and together they will encircle Georgia's capital, while their forces go ahead and take the rest of the east, before swiftly moving over and taking all of the west. From here, Georgia and Russia will easily take the capital city of Georgia, and we can take a look at this peace treaty. And in this treaty, we see that Armenia is going to take over two southern provinces from Georgia, while the rest of the country goes entirely over to Russia. So really, Armenia didn't get a whole ton of land from this war, but it really isn't expected for them to take much more than what they have, because they probably didn't contribute as much as Russia contributed in this war. So therefore, they're given less spoils at the conference. But where does Armenia go next? Because now they border Russia, which is the strongest country they border, the second strongest country in the world. They still border Turkey, they still border Azerbaijan, and they still border Iran. All those countries are stronger than them, and 3 of those countries are top 20 countries in terms of military power in the world. So they are in a very sticky situation here, which means that they're going to have to go ahead and get themselves some allies. Now, in real life, Armenia is kind of aligned with Russia and their allies. Not really, though, because they have started to motion their leaving of CSTO. So they're on their way out in terms of relations with Russia. And other than that, well, it's not looking too great. They're kind of friendly with Iran, so they might be able to use that for their advantage. But these guys, they kind of have like a neutral relation with everyone in real life. They are previously friendly with Russia, like I said, but that is deteriorating. And then they also have relations with some Western countries, like the US, for example. They kind of play both sides, but at the end of the day, they don't have one real solid ally to go to. That is, unless we start a much larger war in the Middle East, which I think we're going to do. Now, I need you guys to hear me out on this one. I don't know how this war would start. I don't know why this war would start, but one thing leads to another, and Turkey and Iran end up in a war against each other. Turkey will call their ally of Azerbaijan into the war. Iran will get Qatar as well as Syria on their side, and Armenia will join the war on the side of Iran in hopes of gaining land. Now, this is going to be a hard war for the red team to win because Turkey, already as they are, is a very strong country. Iran is a strong country as well, but they're not necessarily as strong as Turkey. And then you look at their allies. Turkey has a much stronger ally in Azerbaijan than any of the allies that Iran has in Qatar and Syria. So it's not looking too great for the red team here, but we'll have to see what happens. For now, though, Turkish troops will mainly focus on the Syrian front, targeting the northern areas of Syria because they do like to do that a lot in real life. No further context is required. Now coming over here to the Caucasus front, Turkish troops will also move into Armenia and do a ton of damage there, eventually linking up with Azerbaijan. But speaking of Azerbaijan, Iran will start to move their troops into this country. They'll take over the entire exclave of Azerbaijan, and this creates a very difficult situation, not only in Azerbaijan, but also in Iran, where there are a ton of ethnic Azerbaijanis. So these two fighting each other would have a ton of consequences internally. But for the sake of Armenia, who is the main subject of this video, we're going to say that nothing boils over, and the conventional war just plays out as usual. Now, though, as you'll see, Turkish troops have captured Damascus, the capital of Syria, and from there, the rest of this country will collapse. We see Iranian and Armenian troops take over all of Azerbaijan, but they do struggle in pushing back the Turks in the northern part of Armenia. And slowly but surely, Turkey will start to push back and gain an advantage over the red team due to kind of them just having a overall geographical advantage as well as their main military advantage. Their troops will start to creep over into Iran, but the geography here makes it a little bit difficult for them to, really get down in there. So for now, they just focus on taking out the rest of Armenia, which they almost entirely do. Now, I will stop them there because that can't happen. Armenia has to form an empire. And for that to happen, someone else is going to have to get involved, and luckily, there's someone to the north that is kind of interested. Russia will join the war on the side of the red team, which completely shakes up everything because now this war is involving the second strongest country in the entire world, and they are conveniently enough on the side of Armenia, who is breathing his last breath right now.
Savings can be easy. High interest returns, low effort with Mari Savings Account. Enjoy up to 2.88% interest per annum.
Right now. So with Russia's entrance into the war, things go from great to horrible for Turkey, who is going to be outmatched by their aggressors here. Iran and Armenia will work to push back Turkish forces all the way over here in the far eastern regions, and from there they will start to work with the Russian forces to advance deep in the Turkish territory. This is also a very opportune time for countries that don't like Turkey to get involved in the war, so welcome to the conflict, Greece. We all know why you're here, but now with Greece in the war, things are definitely not going to go well for Turkey. The Greek army will march over into Thrace and meet over with the city of Istanbul. Turkey will fight for their lives to defend that, though. They definitely don't want the Greeks to get that city. The Greek troops will also make a landing over here off the Sea of Marmara, and red team forces will start their advance towards Ankara, which is, of course, the capital city of Turkey. Now, the geography over here in this part of Turkey, it is very rough. It's very mountainous. So, sending an entire conventional army across there to occupy it is kind of unlikely, which is where Russia's navy is going to come in. So they're going to make a naval landing off this top part right here. This will be kind of like the main driving force to get to Turkey's capital city. So they will slam their troops into this landing, and they will make their way down south. Meanwhile, over here, red team forces will still advance into Turkish territory, but they're going to rely a little bit more on some Syrian rebels to help them out. Poor Syria just got out of a civil war full of rebellions, and now they're having more pop up. But this time, they are pro-Syrian rebels who are going to push back against the Turkish occupation. So this is actually a good thing. This is not an internal conflict. This is a reaction to an international action against their country. This will do a lot to help Syria. It will unite their people a lot better than they currently are. But as you saw, the Turkish forces are kicked completely out of Syria, and the advance further into their territory continues. Russian forces have captured Ankara, so that's not good for Turkey at all. Additionally, Greek forces are not being pushed back, and that's due to the fact that the Turkish military is fighting a three-front war. A one-front war is manageable. A two-front war, you're getting a little bit, out of hand there. Three-front war, just go ahead and get on your knees. It's over. So that's what Turkey does. Goodbye. And the jumping of Turkey and Azerbaijan is complete. So what started as a minuscule conflict between Turkey and Iran quickly erupted into a much broader regional conflict involving states like Russia. The main point, of course, is that Armenia is the beneficiary of this. They'll now get a lot of land from this peace treaty, so let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like. Welcome to Greater Armenia. Part 1. So Armenia will get a ton of land from Turkey here. They got way more than they probably should have and way more than they expected, but nonetheless they will take this because once again their main foreign policy goal at this point is aggressive expansion, and that is exactly what happens here as they pretty much triple in size. I say triple because I left out a key part, which is the other half of Azerbaijan, so they get that as well, and now you can see how much larger they have become. So Armenia will completely annex all of this land from both Turkey and Azerbaijan. Aside from that, we see Russia gets this part of Azerbaijan, so they get their capital city going down the Caspian coast. Iran will be getting all of this land right here, which is a ton of ethnic Azerbaijani land. They also don't have an ethno state anymore, so now if you're Azerbaijani, I guess Iran is your best destination. Probably not Armenia, since they don't like each other, but Syria will get a ton of land in southern Turkey. This is kind of interesting because I don't know if Syria would necessarily get a ton of land since they were occupied for a very long time, but then again, Armenia was occupied for a long time too, and they got a lot of land, so I guess this is fine. And then finally, coming over here to Greece, we see that they are going to annex all of Thrace and a lot of portions of western Turkey, specifically around the entrance to the Black Sea. So Turkey loses a lot of land, and I'm just going to say these borders look great. I'm proud of myself for this. I don't think I've ever had borders that don't look like crap before, but, these aren't that bad. Also, I guess Russia should probably get a little bit more land as well. I think that's only fair since they did a lot of the heavy lifting in this war. But at least in my head, since they didn't get a lot of land, Turkey probably has has a pro-Russian government that was installed there now, so maybe they're like now officially an ally of Russia. So it's Russia, Belarus, and Turkey instead of just Russia and Belarus when you're looking at like geopolitical scenarios and stuff. That also brings up a good question. What about NATO? Well, we're just going to pretend that NATO doesn't exist because, first of all, Turkey got attacked, but also Greece attacked Turkey, which is a NATO on NATO crime. So it just would implode the whole world. We're not going to have that happen because Armenia has to form an empire. That's pretty important for this video. All right, so the Armenian Empire is looking good. They now have a ton of land. They're friendly with a ton of countries like Iran and Russia now. What else is there for Armenia to do? Because this isn't enough land for them. They want all of Greater Armenia, which includes a lot of areas over here. Well, attacking Turkey doesn't make a whole lot of sense as of right now because you just got out of a war with them. You probably can't attack them due to the peace treaty. So where do you go next? Obviously, you don't go after Russia. Obviously, you don't go after Iran. That leaves Syria and Iraq. Iraq, probably don't want to mess with them, but Syria, that does leave an area of opportunity for you. So even though you were just fighting on the same side against Turkey, Armenia declares war on Syria. Now, this invasion will completely ruin Armenia's relations with Iran, and they will severely damage their relations with Russia as well. So you do lose two friends by doing this, but you're going to get a lot of land, especially considering the fact that Syria at this point in time is just, it's a rebuilding country. It's not whole. The economy isn't great. The military is all over the place. Armenia has a clear advantage over Syria here. So they will reach all the way down to the border of Lebanon. They will meet up with the Mediterranean Sea. And from there, they'll move forces down toward Damascus, where they will be stopped by Syrian forces. So with that little bit of an issue in the south, they'll focus more so up north, and they will take out the rest of the Turkish land. But they still struggle to move properly into the Syrian capital area, as Syrian forces have pretty much fortified the entire city. So this little standoff will occur for very many weeks. The Syrian forces there will actually be able to push back some of the Armenian armies a little bit, and this is only after the attrition has set in. So Armenian forces, first of all, they're super far away from their actual core territory, so it's going to be hard for Armenia to completely supply their military down here, and that's especially amplified when you're fighting like basically attritional warfare, and neither side is making any like notable gains. It's basically just back and forth like this and that. Anyway, enough rambling. Syria will eventually fall over to Armenian forces. No matter how long it takes, Armenia does have the advantage. And plus, Syria was probably starving. They were cut off from the ocean. And unless Israel is trading with them, which I highly doubt that, they only have Lebanon, when, that can be confusing sometimes. So it was probably for the best that they gave in earlier rather than later. Anyway, though, let's take a look at this peace treaty. You know that thing I said earlier about how these borders were great? Yeah, well, I take it back. Syria will lose all of their northern land over to Armenia, so they will completely annex all of the Turkish land that Syria got from their previous war, and they will also take over this like northeastern province from Syria. I don't think there's anything here, but you know what? Take it, whatever. It's yours, bro. You can have it. But the most important thing here is that Armenia now has access to the sea, which means that they can properly trade with other countries, not only in the Mediterranean Sea, but countries over in the Western Hemisphere as well, and also like everywhere else in the world because the Suez Canal is right here. So this is pretty big for Armenia. Anyway, the Armenians will now be signing an official alliance with the nation of Greece. This is not foreshadowing. I promise. Okay, I'm lying. It might be foreshadowing. But Armenia gets themselves an official ally. With them breaking their relations with Iran and also damaging them with Russia, they need a new friendly force. And of course, they're completely surrounded by enemy countries now. Turkey doesn't like them. Syria is definitely not going to like them. Iraq is probably neutral. Iran doesn't like them. And Russia is like, they're more on the negative side. So they get a beacon of hope over here in Greece, who is going to be friendly with them because they have a common interest. And, hi, Turkey. How are you doing today? Oh, you're looking a little bit...
Order food you love with Food Panda. Download the app and order now.
Food Panda?
Oh, you're looking a little bit blue. The Armenians and the Greeks will now work together to take on the Turks. Truer words have never been spoken. But the Armenian army will now move into Turkey. Now, this is the first time that Armenia is fighting a war by themselves on a front. So this is going to be, well, actually, no, take that back because Syria. But this is going to be challenging for them because this is Turkey and, not a weak in Syria. Even though Turkey has lost a ton of land, they're still a relatively strong nation. So they do have to be careful here not to get, splooged by them. Honestly, I think I probably could have chosen a different word. Splooged is probably not the greatest of words. But, hey, it doesn't matter because look, the Greeks, they're doing it. They're taken Ankara. Wow. Greece might have secured a secret deal with Colombia to get some special powder that enhances the ability of their military. And I'm not saying they shared it with Armenia, but they definitely shared it with Armenia. They were definitely doing lines together. Anyway, Turkey is gone. The Greeks and the Armenians successfully take out a country that is probably stronger than them both, but maybe not actually, because Greece is a strong country. I don't give them enough credit for, their military, so I feel like actually maybe that this could happen. I don't know. It just depends on what's happening in Turkey. Anyway, though, enough yapping. Let's take a look at the peace treaty between Greece, Turkey, and Armenia. Good news, everyone. Greater Armenia is officially back. No, but seriously, they are now going to double in size. Armenia seems to be very fortunate in these peace treaties where they get a ton of land, but Armenia is huge. They now annex all of the most eastern regions of Turkey, and as for the rest of this country, they will lose a ton of land over to Greece. Now, this is a lot more of the valuable land of Turkey, so the Greeks get a little bit less, especially considering how this land over here isn't as valuable. But Turkey does still exist, and they're still going to be a relatively they're not going to be strong, but they're going to be a mid-tier country still. This is good for them. It could have been a lot worse, I'll just say that. But big Armenia is looking very large. But guess what? They have another ally, and that ally is Iraq. How did they get Iraq as an ally? Well, I'm not too sure. It just kind of happened. But the red team now is securing themselves as a pretty decent regional alliance. You see, it starts over in Greece, it goes all the way over to Armenia. This entire Turkish peninsula is now under red team occupation, basically. And then now you have a stronghold down here in Iraq as well. What could this entire alliance be up to next? Honestly, I don't really have a reason as to why Pakistan would join. They wouldn't. So just make something up. You make it up. You do it, not me. Anyway, it's time to jump Iran. After the invasion of Syria, relations between these two countries went right down the drain. And, that makes sense. Syria and Iran are allies. Speaking of Syria, they're not going to join this war because that is instant death. We don't want that happening. But Pakistani forces will now move over into the easternmost region of Iran, and they will mostly focus on the southern coastal areas, which have a lot more value than the inland areas. Iraq will also do much of the same, focusing on the Persian Gulf, while Armenia will do most of the heavy lifting in the north, now heading straight towards Tehran. Okay, so Iran versus Pakistan is pretty bad for them. Iran versus Iraq, that's pretty bad for Iraq, but when you're adding in this monstrosity that is quite beautiful, Greater Armenia. We love Greater Armenia around here. And then you also add in Greece, which is a very strong country. Yeah, Iran is cooked. It's over. Just surrendered. Yeah, there you go. See, there goes Tehran. Your 80-year-old dictator just croaked. That sucks. Actually, it's probably good for your country. I didn't say that. Please don't kill me, Iran. I love your country. You have a very beautiful country. I want to go there. I want to live there. Everything about Iran is great. Just don't kill me. But in this scenario, it's not going to play out like that because I'm not the one dying. The country is. Goodbye, Iran. Okay, maybe they wouldn't fold exactly like that. Maybe they would have fought back a little bit more. Maybe they would have even invaded into Armenia because they're stronger than Armenia. I don't know. But guess what? They're gone. So that's just kind of how it happens. It happened. It's happening. Actually, it already happened. So it's done. No more happening. Anyway, let's take a look at this peace treaty where Iran is gangbanged. And in this treaty here, we see how the three countries are going to divide up Iran. So first of all, Pakistan gets the most land because they definitely did most of the heavy lifting. Pakistan, a top 10 power in the world, I believe, if not top 12. But they will annex all of this very not so useful land down here. They didn't really get a whole lot of good stuff from this, so they might be a little bit unhappy. They probably would leave Armenia's alliance. But hey, oh my god, that is horrible. Okay, maybe they annex Afghanistan too. I just can't look at that. That was bad. We can't do that. No. So now we have this. This is much better. Anyway, ignoring Pakistan's little side quest here, not coming back over here, the oldest border in the world, the one between Iraq and Iran, will not be going bye-bye because Iraq will be annexing all of this land. It's a lot of mountains, so now they have a way better, natural boundary between them and Iran. And then we have Armenia taking all of this land up here, so those Azerbaijanis that I was talking about, they're now under Armenian jurisdiction, which hopefully that is okay. Armenia, please don't. That was more so of your thing, though, so I don't think we have to worry about that. But yeah, Iran does still exist. They didn't lose a whole ton of land, but now that we have the borders like this with Pakistan annexing Afghanistan, I feel like that they would probably, change a little bit, so maybe Pakistan gets all of this land. Use your imagination. But anyway, Armenia has officially formed their empire. It's very long, very lengthy, but there's really not much else for them to do at this point. They could take out the rest of Turkey, they could take out Syria. Maybe they'd work together to take out the rest of Iran. Do not poke the Russian bear. That would end your empire very quickly. So before you do that, let's go ahead and end this video. So that will do it for today's video. If you guys did enjoy, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new.